I'm Alyssa Lane, and welcome to the LifeKraft podcast. LifeKraft is passionate about helping you live your everyday life better by sharing inspiration, awareness, and tools to enable you to create a fulfilling life. On this episode of the LifeKraft podcast, we have the dynamic Rozanne McKenzie. Rozanne is a TV presenter, executive producer, MC, voiceover artist, and a traffic presenter on Jacaranda FM. And in this episode, we talk not only about her phenomenal career, but also about her journey growing up. From impostor syndrome that she feels till this day to how she handled failure, Rozanne shares it all. She also touches on her wellness journey, her marriage, motherhood, and how to have a work-life balance. And then she shares why pole dancing is such a powerful art form. Are you ready to be inspired? Then tag at the LifeKraft and at Rozanne McKenzie on social media and share on your stories or on a post what your biggest takeaway was from this episode. Rozanne, I am so honored to have you on the LifeKraft podcast today. You're a phenomenal woman, and I can't wait for our audience to get to know you a little better. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while that I've wanted to be on this podcast, so I'm extremely excited to be here today, and I feel very honored that you've asked me.
I think our audience is going to learn so much from you. So I want to dig into the first question, which is you grew up in South Africa, Cape Town, born and bred. You went to university there. Just tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how that impacted the woman that you are today.
Yes, so I grew up in Cape Town. I grew up in the Cape Flats, in Bonteheuwel. My mom is a single parent, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents as a result because she's a nurse. So I spent a lot of time in Bonteheuwel with my grandparents and with my grandmother especially, which is who I learned mostly to speak Afrikaans from. So my only spoke Afrikaans, and she was just the most amazing woman, made a big impact on my life. And then I was lucky enough to go to some good schools, on scholarship because, even though my mom couldn't always afford the schools she wanted to send me to, she sent me there anyway. And, luckily I had a little bit of brains so I could, get scholarships so that she didn't have to worry too much financially. And then, so from there, from the Bonteheuwel days, I went to St. Mary's Primary in town next to Parliament. And then from there, I went to Rustenburg High School. And, after Rustenburg, I went to UCT where I studied drama. So that journey definitely was not really like just a linear one. I mean, a lot of upheaval, and with it just being me and my mom, it was never easy. So I think that's had a big impact on the person that I've become subsequently.
What would you say was the biggest thing that you realized with, I know I grew up with a single mom as well, and there are definite things that you learn, skills that you acquire through being a single child with a single parent. It shapes you in different ways. What do you think was the biggest thing that you got from having a single mother and that whole journey?
That is such a great question. And also I'm so glad to be speaking to another single mom child, because they are superheroes. And I think now that I have my own kids, I have such an even more of a appreciation for everything that my mom went through, because I struggle most days with a partner that is fully invested and fully supportive and totally involved in the kids' lives. So I don't know how she did that by herself, but she did. So I think what I've learned from the way that my mom brought me up is definitely to look at adversity as a challenge. It's not necessarily always going to be easy, but the adversity is not put in your place to stop you. It's put in your place so that you can get around it. Some things are, I'm oversimplifying completely, because there's a lot of things in people's lives that are adversities that they can't get over. But I think everything that life threw at my mother, she just went over it, pushed through it, and I mean, you don't want to have a life that is hard all the time. But when life was hard, she didn't back down. She just and kept going. So I think that is something that I've learned from her, is that adversity isn't there to stop you. It's there to make it a little bit difficult, but you can still go on.
Oh, I love that. I so relate, because my mom was the same. I think I got my grit and my resilience from her. There was no stopping her. She always used to say, It's not a full stop. It's a challenge. See it as a challenge. How can you rise up? What new skill do you need to acquire? What new version of you do you need to tap into to get through this? There's no way around it. You have to go head first into every situation. Yeah. There's no time to think about it. If that challenge arose, you've got to go through it. And it really forms you. And I think it makes you strong when you get into, quote unquote, the real world. But I want to talk a little bit about your going into drama. And then if I had to read your entire list of credentials, you're an artist through and through. Doesn't matter what medium you use, from presenter to executive producer, voiceover artist, actress, singer, dancer, and it's just phenomenal. I want to know, what is the one skill that you have that you believe is the most important thing to your success? What was that one skill you acquired that led to your success in all of those areas?
So I think the one thing that I have picked up over my years of my career that's really stood me in good stead is getting into TV presenting. I studied drama. I have an honors degree in drama and media studies, but I'd never ever presented TV when I started on Kwela in 2008. I knew always that I wanted to be a newsreader, and it was always something that I was very interested in. And when I got that job, it was learn as you go. Wow. It was literally, I got the job. I'd never interviewed a person before. I'd done a little bit of radio at varsity, but I'd never been myself on camera. I'd never done that. So I think the best skill that I've learned over all the years has been presenting, because I can present in the field. I can present live. I can present at an event. I can present behind a mic. I can present. And I can now coach people to take the skills that I've learned, because there was no one to teach me. I don't know where you can go study presenting now in this day and age, except here, come to me.
Say.
There's a shameless plug. But, so presenting, because whenever I have to present myself, I don't have a doubt. I don't have a doubt about my ability at all. Wow. And I think that is just an important space to be in mentally, is that I don't doubt myself. English, Afrikaans, I'm ready.
I love that about acquiring a skill and perfecting it, because it gives you confidence. Yeah. It's absolutely about mindset, skill set. And those two really bounce off of each other. And as you say that, I'm like, you had that mindset of learn as you go, jump into that opportunity, and then you started acquiring the skills to give you confidence so that you can take that into any area of your life. So if you had to give one piece of advice to someone listening to this that's thinking, oh my goodness, it's so easy for you to say you've already done all of that. I don't even know where to start. I have no desire. I have no drive, but I know I want to live a different life. What is one little thing that they can do today to just start going into honing in on a skill, maybe taking that first step into jumping into something where they're going to learn where they go as they go? What is one thing that you would give, one piece of advice to them?
You know what? This question is so cool as well, because it relates to something I saw this week, and it's going to be a little bit of a convoluted story, but I feel like everything in my life is interwoven. So I'm just taking pieces from wherever. So I follow a guy called James Smith on Instagram, and he's a personal trainer, and he's very blunt, swears a lot, tells it like it is, right? So I have been pole dancing for about 11 months now. And pole is a very emotional and a mental thing. Like sometimes you just click a move. Other times your body and your brain don't want to work. And like, I was like, I don't think my body's right for this. I don't think I can do this. Like maybe this is not for me. So I've had about 2 or 3 weeks where I've just kind of been off. Last week I even cried. I'm very emotional. I cried. Then this week I saw this video that he did, and he's got nearly 1 million followers on Instagram. And he posted a video of one of his first Facebook videos. So he posted while he was talking, and then there was this Facebook video from years ago playing. And he was from 5 years ago. And he said the only difference between him then and him now is repetition. You have to put in the reps. You've got to keep doing it. Like, even if you look back now and you feel like, oh, if I had to watch my first Kwela insert now, I would probably die. I would probably just go, nope, no. That girl needs some lessons. But when I saw that, I just clicked. I was just like, oh my word. I can't compare my journey of 11 months of pole to someone who's been doing it for 6 years. Just like someone who's just come into the industry now and is for the first time interviewing someone cannot compare themselves to me who's been doing it for 13 years. So I think what to answer your question in short, and I know it's been a long convoluted story, but I think you can't be afraid to fail at the beginning. At the beginning, you're not going to be great. Nobody's great at something the first time they try it. Just put in the reps, whether it's watching yourself in the mirror of maybe what you would look like on camera and kind of starting to work on that, or whether it's going to the gym and now you can pick up 1 kilo. In 3 months, maybe you can pick up 5 kilos. You just have to put the reps in.
I love that.
You've got to just practice your craft. Whatever it is, you've got to keep going.
It's so true. And that's the only way that we start shifting our paradigms and our programming and our belief system. And I think that's where having a love for what you do comes in. Because if you love what you do, when it gets tough, when you end up crying because your brain and your body doesn't want to work together, or you have that first setback or that first failure, you are going to want to put in the reps because you actually enjoy what you do. And I think people are so afraid to really live a life that they love because we think that we can't. What was going on in your mind? Because it feels like when I look at your story, to an outsider, it's like she just lived this life that everyone dreams of. TV presenter. I mean, Kwela is an amazing show to be on, and you have so many great conversations with interesting people, and you get to travel, and then you're on Jacaranda and you're reading the news there, and you're an executive producer. I mean, you are the ultimate boss, babe, and you're just doing it in such a creative way. Was there ever a moment in your life where you said, maybe I should just settle? Maybe I can't do this. Maybe it's too difficult. Maybe I am not good enough for this life that I want to live.
Like, honestly, if I don't have that imposter syndrome, I can't do this once or twice a week, then it's like, I promise you, the thoughts of, do I belong here? Do I actually know what I'm talking about? Do I know what I'm doing? And it applies to every area of my life. Parenting, work, pole, gym, everything. Like, why am, like, you know, if I don't ask myself those questions at least once or twice a week, then I'm not me. Like, honestly, there are so many things that are setbacks and that have been disappointments in my life. Like, I think of something last year. I really, I had such a good year last year in terms of my career and the stuff that I was able to do. I was working on Kopscave, Besigheid wat Saak Market started. I'd produced my first TV show, or the company produced the first TV show, and it, like, everything was going great. And then there was this job that I really wanted, a presenting job. I really, really, really wanted. And I thought, you know what, after 12 years in this industry, I'd put in the work, I'd put in the hours, I had the track record to show, and they didn't want to see me. They didn't even want to see me for the gig. They didn't even want to see me. Like, it's not like I went and my audition was crap. They didn't want to see me. So you have these highs and lows. So I have these things that I am doing that people have come to me and said, listen, we've seen your work. We want to work with you. Now there's something that I really want, and they may have seen my work. Meh, we don't really care. We don't want to see you. And I mean, like, something like that is hard. This industry is full of rejection. Yeah. So full of rejection. But you just have to. And I wallowed. I was eating garage pies and crying for a few days. But when I was able to deal with the rejection, I understood why it wasn't for me. It wasn't my time for me to do. And it also wasn't my job. It was someone else's job, and it was not meant for me. So it doesn't matter how many garage pies I eat, how many cries I do. It doesn't matter. It's not going to make the job my job. So, and as you get old, as I've been getting older, Melissa, I will say to you that is kind of, I don't want to say getting easier, but I'm coping a bit better. I don't necessarily go, oh, well, it's because you're not good enough. It's because you suck. That's why they didn't want to see me. They didn't want to see me because I wasn't the right fit. So that wasn't what they were looking for. And unfortunately, I had to work through that and get over it and move on to the next job.
Brilliant. I love that story, because I wanted to ask you what was one of your biggest failures and what did it teach you next? Because I think we learn so much from our failures, and not everyone talks about it, just like not everyone talks about that imposter syndrome. We'll look at you on screen and we'll hear you on the radio and we'll read all of your credentials, and we won't understand that you still feel that sting of, am I good enough? Can I do this? Why the hell am I here? There is always that in the back of your mind. Yeah. It's just moving forward regardless. And it does get easier. That voice does start fading away when you take action. But what was that one failure that you can think of now?
I always talk about this because it changed my life. The job changed my life. A couple of years ago, I got my dream job. I got my dream job reading the news. Little girl Rozanne was beside herself. Like when I got that job, I was like, well, this is me. I'm going to retire at this place. I'm going to be 75 reading the news in Afrikaans or so. And the type of stories that we were telling were things you wouldn't see in mainstream media on other news channels. We were going to the Cape Flats. We were going to places, informal settlements outside Bloemfontein, talking to people who hadn't had water for a year. Or, the people that were the underdogs, that were not being heard. We were telling those stories, and I was getting to do that a couple of nights a week, and it was just like the best thing. And a year later, the show was cancelled. And I talk about this a lot when people ask, but that just, it broke me almost. I was emotionally so invested in that job, not because only it was my dream job, but I felt like we were making a difference. And the fact that it was so unceremoniously and so suddenly just ripped out from underneath me. I'd been on shows before that had been cancelled. It stung. And because I'd been through it a few times, I was able to manage the process and manage my emotions around it. But when Nistach was cancelled, I just felt like I'd been on a failing team. I'd been on a team that failed. And the fact that I was on a team that failed at something that I was so involved with and so excited about broke me almost. And and also just, it wasn't it wasn't nice how it ended. It was kind of like 2 days notice, off you go. You don't even need to.
There's no closure.
Read a bulletin again after. There's no closure. You're just kind of left there. Once again, that even if you love something doesn't mean it's going to last. So enjoy it. Also, it might sting at the time. It's another one of those where, like, at the time, it's so hard to get over. But now, 2.5 years later, I can talk about it and I don't break into tears. You know, like I don't, as sad as it still makes me to talk about it, I'm able to speak about it a little bit more objectively.
That is healing. It's when we start integrating that and seeing it. I love Wayne Dyer always says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Yeah. And it feels like that. When you allow healing into your life, even if it's something that you wanted that bad, little Rozanne was like, that is my thing. that is why I was put on earth. And then you realize, but no, you are more. And I think sometimes life loves showing us that. Here you go, experience that, but you're so much more than that. So maybe I need to take that away from you so that you can see you are so much more than that and you're capable of so much more. And your best days are still ahead of you. Yeah. But as we're on the subject of healing, I want to come back round to your health journey.
Yes.
I'm a health coach, so it fascinates me. Your health and wellness journey has been inspirational, and I see your posts, and I love always watching your stories, how you show up for yourself, how you take care of your body, how you take care of your mental health. So I'd love for you to just share a little bit about what was the trigger for you to just say, enough's enough. I'm going to turn that part of my life around. And how did you go about that?
So, funnily enough, I've always been very active. And when I moved to Joburg, in 2006, I was doing musical theater and we danced all the time. We were doing 7 to 9 shows a week. When we were rehearsing, we had 4 or 5 hours of dance rehearsals, blah, blah, blah. So it was part of, my job to stay healthy and stay fit and all those things. Then in 2008, I got a boyfriend who is now my husband. And I wasn't working in musical theater anymore. I was working in TV and I was doing a lot of traveling, and there was not a structure to my life. There wasn't a structure. There wasn't a routine. I didn't train. I didn't do anything. And then with being on TV, people have a lot to say about how you look. Unfortunately, it's just an occupational hazard. It's something that comes with the job. And I was working on a TV show and I got called in by the production manager and she said, listen, we need to talk. She was very kind about it. And I actually had noticed it, but I wasn't worried about it. I mean, I was young. I was like 29 or whatever. She said to me, listen, in the past couple of episodes, like, you haven't looked good. You haven't, it doesn't look like you are on TV. You know, it looks like you're not taking care of yourself, and it doesn't. And that was a big wake-up call. And I realized, I went back and then watched the episode that sent them over the edge, and I was like, yeah, this is not a healthy looking girl. So I got a personal trainer at my local gym, a guy called Grant Myberg. And that's when I started doing functional training. And I'd never done a squat in my life before. I'd never done a lunge. I'd never picked up a kettlebell, nothing, until I met Grant. And then I got healthy. I started very small. I started very slow. Like I said, I'd never really done weight training or functional stuff or whatever, but he was there with me every step of the way. Trained me. I was back in shape for my wedding. He trained me in and out both my pregnancies. And I just looked at my health, started looking at my health differently. I started looking at what I was putting into my body. Started looking at just being kind to myself. And then actually from that point on, the training became addictive. Like I don't stop training. Like literally I trained, like I said, through both my pregnancies, I literally was training the day before I gave birth to Fallon. I think at a preggy yoga class or something. Same with James. I just kept going because it was good for my mind. It's good for my body. And I knew it was going to be good for my recovery, which it was both times. So now recently in the past, like 2 years, I've really started looking at my nutrition and going, okay, cool. It needs to be something that I enjoy eating and I don't have to restrict myself, but I also can't eat pies every day. And I think that's made the biggest difference. So it's a mental thing for me. Like I need to train. I need the endorphins just for my happiness levels. And then also just to push myself a little bit further every session and just walk out of that session and nail it. Like I got up this morning at 4:30 so I could go to the gym.
Wow.
Because I don't have time anywhere else in the day.
Yeah.
I might have been like, oh, it's cold, it's dark, it's horrible. But when I was done, I was like, yes, I've done this for me today. I had my hour to myself.
I think it shows so beautifully how a lot of times we go through life without thinking about the impact that it makes. And you were in a field where that was necessary, where looking radiant, looking healthy is just such a great bonus because you're such an example for people. You're really selling a lifestyle. You're selling a possibility, and being healthy and being radiant not only translates on camera, but it translates in your radiance, in how you make people feel when they're around you, in how you handle tough situations. And as you said, every time you show up for yourself, every time you lift a bit heavier, you go at 4:30 in the morning, you do those things. When something tough happens in life, you're going to say, you know what? Well, I can do tough things. Because I can wake up early in the morning and I can do that and I show up for myself so I can handle this too. So drink that Kool-Aid because it's such a holistic thing. We are holistic beings. It's so much more than that. But I want to ask you in regards to your pole dancing, how has that, because that's something I want to do, just on a personal note. I've never done it. I want to do it. It's on my bucket list. I'm going to love it. I know. I think I'm going to suck at it, but I'm going to love it. No. But how has that changed your body image? How has that changed the way you look at yourself as a woman? The strength that you have to have for that? Just tell us a little bit about that journey.
Wow. Pole has transformed my whole life. It has changed me fundamentally. It is just, there are not enough words for what an empowering and transformative experience the past 11 months have been for me. So I started doing pole dancing with a coach called Carmi van Heerden, and she is amazing. Like she's just like, according to her, there's nothing I can do. I'm like, I've only had 3 lessons. She's like, no, you can do this upside down. Like, she's just amazing. Or I'll go, I don't know if I want to post that video because like you can see all my dents and stuff from my cellulite while I'm holding that pose. She was like, the point of that thing you just said is that you are holding the pose. It doesn't matter. Post the video. So now I'm very much like, I think I've always been a post a photo type of person, whether you've got makeup on, whether you look a mess first thing in the morning, where it doesn't matter. I'm posting the photo because I want to look back and go, oh my word, look at that. Yeah. But I have never felt stronger or I've never felt more in my body and more appreciative of my body and what it can do than since I've started doing pole. It is absolutely the most. I can't think of something that I have had more of a journey with, and in such a quick time as well. And I mean, it's not easy. Like now that it's now level 3, we've been able to go back to coaching. So now I also train at the Cirque in Joburg here, and where I do group classes there. Okay. And the fact that we've been able to go back, like now, as I was getting ready to come to do this recording, I realized, all my calluses are back. Oh, some bruises over here. Oh, a bruise over here. So physically, it is a very demanding activity.
Yeah.
But you just, from the reward that I get out of it, like how I feel when I'm doing it, I will have bruises every day and calluses every day. For the rest of my life, if I can still do pole.
I think it's so important for everyone to have that one thing, whether it's pole dancing. I have not met a single person who has not been radically changed by it. As human beings, we live so much from the neck up. We're really in our minds a lot. We're thinking so much. We're looking. We only use these senses, but we're so disconnected from our bodies. So whether you get something like pole dancing or yoga or running or anything like that that just connects you to the fullness of your body, the calf muscles, your stomach, you have to at least once a week say, yes, I can't believe I used that muscle. I didn't even know I had that muscle. Then you are living.
Yes.
Then you are living. If you sweat every day and laugh every day, the yogis say you're happy and healthy. And I believe that. And something like pole dancing, it's so great to hear that it connects you back into your body. It's so important. It really, really is. I want to dig into your amazing family life. Your marriage to Chris, and then you're a mama as well. And I want to just dig into that a little bit, because I think our closest relationships teach us the most about ourselves. And especially if you've been married for such a long time. What have you learned through these past years with him about yourself and about being in a relationship long term?
Oh, that's a great question. Do you know what? They say that, I've read recently that when you go through trauma in your life, you become hyper independent. And I am so aware of that now since I read that. Like I'm so aware of this hyper independence that I have. And then I look at it in relation to Chris, and that like I don't often let him do stuff, or I don't let him take care of me enough because I feel like I should be able to do this myself. But what I've learned now from him and how he loves me is to accept someone's love and care, and not think that it's because he thinks I can't do it. It's because he loves me. He wants to do it for me. So that's been a major thing to like go, okay, but I don't have to do that. I don't have to say that I can do it myself. And I don't have to pretend like everything's okay. Like, you know what? I think I learned quite a lot about myself after we had Fallon and I had such bad postnatal depression. But I also learned a lot about Chris, because that became his time to do everything, because I was not okay. Like, he raised the kids. He, like, uit my op die hande gedra, is a saying that is in Afrikaans. That he just nurtured me through probably what is going to be the most painful experience of my life until something else traumatic happens. But he nurtured me without judgment. He was there for me every step of the way, through all of the rage, through all of the tantrums, through all of the screaming and crying and horribleness. He just held me. He made space for me and he held me. And that's the kind of man I married. And it's like, he's gold, proper gold. And like a dad, like you would never. I am quite jealous of my kids. I am quite jealous of my children because I don't have a dad. Or I've never had a dad present in my life. He's around in the world somewhere. I don't care to know. But the way that Chris is present as a father for these kids, like everything that they experience with him, I'm like, this is amazing.
That is brilliant. And I love conversations like this, because a lot of people are always talking about marriage is hard work, and it is. And marriage is so difficult, and it can be. But marriage can be so rewarding when you start focusing on giving and receiving. And I think so many times we're so willing to give in relationships. And if you're hyper independent, like I am / was, I'm also recovering. I think it's the single parent syndrome that's coming through there. I can do it myself.
Yeah, for
Being
sure.
able to open up and let someone love you, it feels so scary and so vulnerable, but that's where the juice lies. That's where those moments lie that carry you through the difficult moments, because you allow that person to love you too. It's not just you giving the whole time. So it's such a beautiful dynamic. It's so beautiful. You are such a busy, busy woman, but not in the sense of, oh, I'm busy, but creating and bringing new things into the world and making this world a better place and informing people and making an impact. How do you balance your life and your work to still be present with your family, to still be a great mama, to still show up for your husband, and also be here for all of us that consume all of your content and watch all of your shows?
I don't always feel like I'm getting to everything. I honestly, like, sometimes I feel like I'm not balancing at all. Like there is sometimes not a work-life balance. And I've come to understand that that's okay. That is okay sometimes. But I try and when I am doing something, I try and be present there. So when on a Saturday morning I take my kids to swimming, I'm not answering work emails. And you know what I've also started doing? And now that's probably why I have an inbox that says 47 unread messages. And I'm just like, the stress. But what I've started doing is I don't answer emails on the weekend. Don't email me on a weekend. Unless like I'm on set and we are shooting something and it is a working weekend, 100% email me on a weekend. But if it is just a normal weekend, don't email me. Rather than send me a message on Instagram and I'll ignore you there. But no. So I don't always feel like I am balancing things. Like it sometimes does get a bit overwhelming. And I sometimes feel like I'm like a horrible parent because I don't get around to everything that I want to get around to. And I don't necessarily feel like I'm 100% there. But I think whoever does feel like they're 100%,
You can't.
like if they are, please give me whatever you're taking because you're like, it's just, for me, it's impossible. So sometimes some things fall by the wayside and they suffer. Like this week, I've had quite a few shoot days. So I haven't been able to get to my emails. And when it's time for me to get to my emails, I will get to my emails and I will answer them well. But I try and compartmentalize things as much as I can.
That's a brilliant answer. And I love how honest you are with that, because it reminds me of a conversation that I had with my client yesterday. And she was saying, yes, but she wants to find a balance when it comes to eating. It should be balanced. You should be able to have pizza and have something healthy to eat. And I told her there's just a fundamental flaw in the word balance, I always think, because that means 50-50. There isn't a balance when it comes to that. It's an integration.
Yeah.
And you get to decide what those stats look like. 80-20, 90-10, and every day it's going to look different.
100%.
But are you happy at the end of the day with your choices? So I love that you were so honest, because it feels like it's not a balance when I listen to you. Because how can you balance that? It's absolutely an integration. It's doing your best every day and saying, yeah, that was the best I could do today. So that's such an inspiration. Before we wrap up, I want to know, which books have impacted you the most in your life?
You know what? I was actually thinking about this last night because I was like, I want to be prepared when Melissa asked me this question because I don't want to be one of those, So I am married to a person who reads a book a week, or like sometimes 2 books a week if he's not having a busy week at work. So he reads he's got an absolutely ferocious appetite for reading, whether it's classics or like new fiction, non-fiction. Like, he's a reader. And I often like compare myself to Chris because I love reading, but I'm not a fast reader. And also in this lockdown period, or in the past like 16 months, I just lost my love for reading until I was listening to a podcast and I'd heard a little bit about this book. And this podcast was interviewing the writer of the book, and her name is Mia Ardern. And Mia wrote a book called Mermaid Fillet. Now, Mermaid Fillet is not a self-help book. It's a fiction book. It's a fiction book. So it's not like, it didn't change my life in like, oh, I read this book and I followed all the steps or whatever. I heard this podcast interview and it was so fun, and I'd heard so much about Mermaid Fillet up until this point that I immediately went to the bookshop and bought the book. I couldn't put it down. I finished the book in 4.5 hours. I literally got up to I think once. I just couldn't put it down. The way that she's written it, the characters, everything just captured me for those 4.5 hours. I was in that world. And it's the best fiction book I've ever read. I am obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it. It's set in the Cape Flats. It's a kind of like a magical realism crime caper with these amazingly detailed, textured characters that's paths all cross for some or other reason. And Mermaid Fillet is the central thing of this book. And I love her writing. I've met Mia subsequently, and she's one of my favorite people in the entire world. And this is a big book. And it excites me. I will have
to get a copy. It excites
me in so many ways. It just excites me, and I'm Mermaid Fillet bedonderd at this point. I love it.
And I always think that's what it's about. That's what reading is about. You need to be able to get captured into that world for that time. And it's just so impactful, and it's a lasting impact. I love that answer. Thank you so much. Rozanne, we have come to the end of our episode, but before I ask you the last question, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you for the woman that you are and the inspiration that you are. The fact that you have gone through what you've gone through, single parent child, growing up where you did, I can just imagine the everyday life things that could have impacted you negatively, that you decided to turn around and make a positive impact for others. You are a shining example of what is possible when you believe in yourself, when you hone your skills, when you're positive about life, and when you look at the bright side. And I love that you keep learning, that you're so aware of yourself, and that you're strong enough to try new things and to suck at something in the beginning so that you can just get to that good part eventually. That you're so sensitive and in tune with yourself and with your partner and with your kids, and that translates. And I know that's why South Africa loves you. I know that now after talking to you. It's that vulnerability, it's your authenticity, and it's your genuine honesty and love for not only yourself but for people. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. Thank you for being such an amazing example for all of us.
Wow. I don't really know what to say to that, except thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for having me. Thank you for creating this platform where people can share positivity, and even your social media, you are really making a difference. So thank you for letting me share my story. I mean, this is amazing.
It's such an honor. So now I want to get to the last question, and I ask this to all of our guests. What is one thing that we can do today to make our everyday lives better?
Recycle.
Love it.
Is that a really bad answer?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Recycle, because it's actually like they are making it easier and easier for us to recycle, especially plastic. Recycle. Just separate your stuff, take it to these recycling bins at garages. I know at certain shopping malls, you can even recycle your old devices if you don't need them. Recycle. Plastic, paper, glass, cans. Just please recycle. Because we only get one planet here.
Yeah.
And if it's done, it's done. There's no recycling Earth. So just recycle.
That has got to be a meme. There is no recycling Earth. So recycle now. I love that. Oh, Rozanne, you made my day. This was such a lovely conversation. I learned so much.
Oh.
It's just like nugget after nugget after nugget. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode and taking the time to invest in yourself and in your future. If you loved this episode, be sure to share it with us by leaving a positive review or tagging us in a post or in your stories. Share one thing that stood out or inspired you to live your everyday life better. This helps us create more meaningful episodes for you to enjoy. If you're not already following us on social media, be sure to follow @LifeKraft for more inspiration and tools to help you live your most powerful life. And remember, you always have the power to craft a better life for yourself, and we are here to help you do just that. We'll connect again in the next episode, and until then, keep creating a life that you're excited to wake up to. We enjoy bringing you interviews from experts and everyday people so that they can talk about their experiences and share information, tips, and what has worked for them on their journey towards a better life. However, remember that the opinions or advice of our guests and myself, the host, should not be taken as personal, actionable advice and is given as general information and education only. Please always remember to consult a qualified professional before implementing any medical, financial, legal, or other advice that you believe might work for you. LifeKraft is not responsible nor liable for your decision when implementing anything you hear on the podcast. Please listen and act responsibly. The opinions of our guests do not represent the opinions or views of LifeKraft or Melissa Lane personally and are meant as information and general education only. Education only. Education only. Education only.